Alrighty, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, April 21st, 2022. We're going to go ahead and do what we do every morning here. So I want to really quickly just review yesterday. We traded the first hour, I believe, and then I took off. So let's take a look at what happened here. Coming into the open, it was actually a pretty nice, strong push. So if you look up here, I think the market opened right around here. So we were kind of pushing higher, right, and pushing up above 44.70, 450, holding and pushing up. And there was some good momentum, so I called a long here right off the fast moving average. No dice on that one. It just went ahead and started pulling back. And I told everybody in the room, once we get down below the 200 moving average, it was going to be time to look for shorts down into VWAP and down into 44.54 quarter, that being our major eye level. And so once the market we went sideways for a little bit and then finally came down, got through the 200 here. And then I told everybody that as this started coming back up, to look for a trade right there between 74 and 75. It came right to 74, right to the 200 moving average to the tick, and went and sold off right into our VWAP, and then right down into 44.54 eventually here. You can see that there was one other opportunity. I know there's a lot of lines on here, so it might look a little bit busy, but it sold off. There was the first trade. I got short a couple ticks below there, and then here we came right back to the fast moving average and then failed again. So there was another opportunity to enter right off this fast moving average at 63. It went about 3 or 4 ticks against that level and continue coming right into 54 quarter here. And then when we got down to 54 quarter, for those who were here, I think it was just me and Bjorn, we had what looked to be a potential bottoming and rotation back up. And what we were waiting for was basically, let's go over to the 3-minute really quickly here and go back to yesterday. What we were waiting for on that low down over here was, this is the low through 54 quarter that we were just looking at. And I told the room, because my 3-minute at the time was not showing any type of divergence, what I would like to see is a push up and then a retest of that low at 52 whatever, 52.75, and retest that low. And if the 3-minute gave us a nice bullish signal, then that was when we could expect the rotation back up to retrace that leg down. And sure enough, what happened was within about 10 minutes there, the market came down, it broke the low by a few ticks, and we got the perfect bullish reversal pattern on our 3-minute chart. And so from that point, we basically were expecting a bounce back up to come test at least VWAP, if not back into the previous daily high. So let's go back to the short time frame here and take a look. So right around here was when I was telling people we're waiting for that low. When we get it and the 3-minute shows the signal, that's what we can expect. And see what happened. Eventually we came down, we broke that low by 1 or 2 ticks. You got the 3-minute bullish divergence along with the 1-minute and the 512. And there you go, we started breaking out to the upside. Now, as we push back up, I made a remark that you could try this level short at 44.6450 because it was the 38% retracement of the whole sell-off here. However, it was counter to the trend. It was counter to our expectations of a bullish breakout. And so if you did take it short, what you wanted to see was price to come down, get through the fast moving average, and get through the 200 moving average and keep going. I told everybody, if you did get short here and it held one of these levels and came back, to just close the trade out. So hopefully if you did try that, you did get out without any loss and maybe even took some profit on part of your position down off of one of the moving averages. And then that was it. I had to leave right around that time. And then I think the market basically, it came up like expected. We did expect from the double bottom with the 3-minute bullish signal, we would retrace the leg. The question was, how far was the market really going to go? You can see we came right up to the 38 and failed, and then they came back. We came up right to the 50, poked through by 1 point and failed. Pretty aggressive failure there. Right back to VWAP. Bulls held VWAP, and then we came up and that was it, right? They took off. So this is a beautiful example of using the 38, pulling back, using the 50, pulling back, and in this case didn't really use the 60 and pull back, but those first two retracement levels basically held to the tick for a nice pullback that you could have gotten a decent trade off of. And then from there, went sideways the rest of the day. If I recall correctly, when I went back to look at the market, it was just up and down sideways the way it's been for a couple days now, although we're now up in a new range in the chart. If you remember for the last few days, it's just been up, down, up, down, up, down, sideways. A little appreciable move higher, and then up, down, sideways. And so yesterday was just more of up, down, sideways. And now we've got the push in the overnight session to a new section of the chart here now, a new range up top. The question is, are we going to play around and do this sideways action this morning as well? We do have Powell speaking here in, I believe, an hour or two, and then he's going to be speaking at the end of the day as well. So lots of Fed speak going on. Who knows what that could mean? It could be pretty indecisive and choppy until some important things are said. And there could be some crazy hiccups because if Powell ends up saying something that has an effect on the market, we could see some pretty aggressive moves up and down here. So just warning you to be a little bit more cautious and aware of the fact that we do have that going on here this morning. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump up to the higher time frames just to kind of put things in perspective here. We chopped up and down yesterday, and then in the overnight session here, we actually broke up above yesterday's range, pulled back right to the previous high from yesterday, held it with a nice double bottom, and we're now trekking higher. We got through, if you look at this dashed dotted line here, right below that straight blue line that you see, that is 50% of the entire sell-off if you zoom all the way out and you look at, well, you can't see it on a tick chart. So let's go up and take a look. Take the 3-minute back there. Let's put the 512 back where it should be. And let's go ahead and we'll look at where that 50% line is and stuff from the bigger perspective. So if you zoom out and look at the whole sell-off from the 46.31 high all the way down to the 43.55.50 low that we made to about 3 days ago now, the 50% retrace was that 93.25, and that's right where we're just about right now. In fact, if you look, we came up to 93.25. Actually, let me look at the 512 here. Came up right to 93.25, 50% of the whole sell-off there, and failed in the overnight session once, twice, and 3 times, in fact, to the tick on basically these two tests. And on this one, it came 1 tick in front and failed. So 3 beautiful tests of that level within a tick or two. But now you can see we're actually starting to trek and hold above it at the moment. So let's go back up to that 60-minute chart. And what I'll do first is we'll do the higher time frames. Again, the ultra high time frames haven't changed very much. We're starting to actually trek a little bit higher here, still holding above 50% of the previous month now, and almost have retraced the top end of it to break out. But other than that, really nothing new. I do want to kind of pat my back on this call that the weekly was showing a bullish divergence, and we said that all the way back, I think on Monday, or I wasn't here on Monday, on Tuesday of this week. But I did draw this on Monday morning. So a nice bullish divergence from the low there. And you know something, now that I look at this, I might actually have to revise what I said. Now that I'm looking at this, and remember that this candle right here, this current weekly candle is in process. So what I was drawing was where the RVI was a day or two ago, and now that I'm noticing with this strong push, RVI is actually starting to change. So we might not even have that potential bullish divergence that I saw might not even be there anymore. I'm just noticing that. So it's slightly higher and price is definitely higher. It's a close one here. It looks almost straight, but there is a little bit of an upward slope here on the RVI. So I might actually have to eat my words here and actually retract what I said. We did have a potential divergence because this little RVI thing was sticking down lower just yesterday. So now that I'm seeing this, I'm going to have to revise that. We had a potential bullish divergence from the low, but I don't see it there anymore. We do have today and tomorrow, and then this will close obviously at the end of the week, so we'll come back and look at it. But if we continue to get bullish follow through, it very well might end up closing higher like this, and we won't have that divergence. Well, I guess that's new on the weekly here. That bullish divergence is no longer there, but it did give us a pretty good bias for the beginning of the week there. Interesting. Coming over to the daily. Daily, remember we had a little bullish divergence back mid, kind of what, about a week ago, and that was it. And right now I don't really see anything else from a divergence perspective on the daily here. You can see that yesterday, somewhat of a bearish clue there with that huge wick to the upside, but in the overnight session we've gone and pushed right through. So that is a confirmation of a continuing bullish move here for right now. Outside of that, don't have anything else to really add from this zoomed out perspective. This again, this dash dot line you see coming across, that's 50% of the whole sell-off from this high to this low. And then the next dash dot line you see up there is the 61.8 retracement, which happens to line up almost perfectly with the major low from April 4th. April 4th low was 27.75, and I believe the low that here we go, the low from the 31st of March was 26.25, and that's literally the 61.8 to the tick. So that little 1 point zone right there, two major lows from previous days and the 61.8, but all lining up right there. That to me is a nice close target if we continue to push here. We're right around 4,500 right now. So 4,500, first nice little target up to 45.25 that's what I'm seeing here on the daily. So let's go down to the 4 hour and look at some of the major support and resistance or structure zones. And you can see that we're now holding up above the 44.50 structure zone. Remember, 44.54 quarter was the major eye level there. And we came up and failed from it. We came down and bounced above it. And now we've gone ahead and pushed through, pulled back, and held above it now for this push up to the next major structure zone. If you guys remember, we have the next major eye level, 45.13. Well, what is 45.13? 45.13 is the beginning, or the beginning of the end of this structure zone going into the next structure zone. Or you can call it major support and resistance or whatever you want. You can see 45.13 to about 45.17. That little 4 point range is right where the market got major failures back at the beginning of April. We got some really good support back at the beginning of April as well, and then back at the end of March, a lot of support from there, and the major resistance back at the end of March there. We trekked up a few hundred points, and I think it was about 300 or 400 point push, came right to 45.13, 45.16, and basically sold off for an entire day before the bulls recovered, came back up, and then had more trouble right at that dividing line there, eventually getting up through it, pulling back and holding right on it, right? So this level here, as we trek all the way back up, is going to be important for the bulls to get through. And just a little bit through there is right to the 61.8 retracement. And if you look back, where's that major wick that you see here back from that day? Right there at that 26.25 level. So this candle right here is the major wick that I'm talking about. You can see that we basically are coming up into this first wick right here, and that low is 45.01 quarter. We've had it on the chart for about a week now, if not more. So we're pushing up into that right now. Be aware that we got the 0.25 swing low there that could act as a resistance point. And then if the bulls get through there, we're right into the major structure dividing line around 45.13 to 16. And if the bulls continue to chug, we've got the 61.8 retracement again lining up with two separate days lows right there around 45.26 quarter, 25.50, something like that. And then from there, there's a whole bunch of stuff above there, but I don't think I want to talk about it on the 4 hour. So let's go down. We'll take a look at the 60-minute where we actually have our levels marked, and we'll look at what we're dealing with above us, what we're dealing with below us, and what we're dealing with right inside of yesterday's price action. So real quickly, up above, we've already talked about the first few levels here. So let's zoom in and take a look. We're right here having trouble at 96.75. That's our minor eye level. Acts very similar to the major levels, just not as strong. So we're holding right now. We're pulling back. Again, let me take a sip of my coffee here. Okay, so if we get up through the overnight high, we've got this major swing low that we talked about, 0.25. We've got the major support and resistance level around 45.13, give or take a few points on either side. Remember, with larger structures, you have to allow for larger error bars, right? So there might be a little bit more of a breakthrough, kind of like what we dealt with 45.25, 45.54 quarter. A lot of times it held to the tick. A lot of times it held within 2 points. But there are definitely some more appreciable little peaks below that go a little bit more than 2 points. So you have to remember the major zones. You can have a little bit more variation, but they still work to the tick on a lot of the tests. So we've got 13 there. Market continues chugging from there. We've got the 61.8. Remember, we talked about it lining up with some of the major lows from some of the days at the beginning of April there. So 25.75 is that to the tick. And then we've got a minor eye level at 27 and 31. So this little pocket here should be trouble if they can get through the major structure zone. And then from there, it's again right into these levels that you should already be tired of hearing about. They're just every almost 10 points. 45.46, 45.55 half, 45.66, and then we're right to the next major structure zone that we looked at on the 4 hour up at 45.74 quarter. Again, give or take a few points in that area. And there's also a swing low, I guess, sitting there right at 72.75. So that's what we have above us if there's some type of insane rally this morning. And then below, and you know something, below, let's look at below the low of yesterday, the green line. So if the market gets below the low of yesterday, then we're looking at the 50% retracement of this whole push up right now. And here's something you have to keep in mind. So don't just rely on my fib leg here. If the market does continue to go higher, this leg right here that I'm going to talk about is going to change, and these levels are going to change. So you have to go about it like this. Assuming that this is the high up here, the overnight high, and we don't come up and push further than that, and the market starts to actually pull back from here, then this fib leg is going to be valid. But if there's just a minor pullback or something and we go and make a new high, you have to redraw this whole thing if you want to look at the entire fib leg from the major low from April 17th. So I just want to make sure that's clear that this is not static. If we do get higher highs, then we're going to have to redraw it. So let me get this on here correctly. The overnight high is 44.98 quarter. So let me just make sure that's 98 quarter. And then remember the low, 43.55.50. Same low that we were drawing the fib leg from the whole sell-off. So let's look at this. The 38 retrace brings us right to this major low here and all this resistance from yesterday. I like the fact that that's lining up right now. Again, it might just be a nice coincidence because we could be pushing higher and we're going to have to redraw the fib leg. But for now, I like the fact, even if the fibs don't line up here, I like the fact that all this resistance from yesterday's overnight session and then the support going into the end of the day yesterday was lining up right at our minor eye level at 44.45.50 here. So let's go ahead and highlight this from 43.50 to 45.50. To me, looks like a great little zone of potential support if we do make it back down here. So let's go ahead and make this 43.50 to 45.50. We'll lock it and make it on all charts. That looks good to me down there. The 50% retrace is going to be that 44.26.75. I'm going to just call it 44.27. So we've got 44.27 here. I'm going to go ahead and mark. I know we're getting close to the open, so I'm trying to be as quick as possible at this point. All charts locked, apply, and then we want it to be dotted or we want it to be a dash dot dot for the fib. I got that. And then the 61.8, you can see I highlighted this area right here. It happens to be that major resistance point from 2 days ago. The highs there that we pushed up into 44.11, and then you can see that the 61.8 is 44.10. And then I think I highlighted this. This was 44.09 to 44.11. That little pocket right there, to me, looks really nice. Again, regardless of whether or not there's a fib that lines up there, if this continues to push higher and we have to redraw the larger fib, this is going to be important, again, from that structure perspective of having all this resistance right here and then coming back right into there, right? So keep that in mind. And then from there, we've got 97 again, 43.81, and then we're all the way back down to 43.61 and 43.48 to 43.50. And that's going to be another 150 points lower. So I don't really feel the need to talk about anything beyond that. But remember, all of our previous pre-session markets here, our pre-market sessions, we've already gone through this stuff, right? So there's that 24 to 27 area as the next major structure zone if they get through 54. They get through 4400, 4397. In the most immediate area here, it's just a clusterfuck of levels. So if we go down into the intermediate time frames and look at what we're pulling back into here, it's just a whole shitload of stuff. In fact, let me go down to the 10 minutes so we can see a little bit more detail here. We've got the previous daily high and the orange power level sitting right here where there's a lot of resistance from yesterday and the overnight session. Then we've got 44.74.50 in here, and then it's right back to the close from yesterday and our next minor eye level at 67.75. So we've got this 67 to 69 zone as a potential support, and then it's right back to 50% of yesterday, and then our major structure zone again that held again pretty much all day yesterday except for this major probe right down to 44.50, and then this pushed back up, and then we held it again. So that's going to be important, obviously. And then if that breaks, it's right back to 44.50 and 44.50. And then we've got the previous daily low. And I'm going to highlight this whole thing, make it come across. So we've got that little zone 31 to 32. That's the previous daily low. And then we've got this retracement here. I might have to revise. What is this? This was the larger retracement, right? So we got that, and we've got 15 quarter. We've got this zone that we talked about between 09 to 11, and then 40, and we already talked about those. But up in here between the green line and the red line, it's a whole bunch of shit, right? A whole bunch of chop. But the most relevant sections we've got highlighted here, and I have to extend this out as well. The market just opened, so we're going to have to get to it here. Have a great rest of your day to everyone else watching on YouTube. We're going to jump down to our short time frames and see what kind of trades we can get here coming out of the open. So take care.